Welcome back. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about your market knowledge. This is definitely one of the most important lessons in this whole course, because not understanding your market knowledge can definitely make or break your business. If you don't understand the ordinances, deed restrictions that HOAs may have, what kind of permits or licensing you may need to operate a short-term rental in your area, you can actually end up having a property that you can't even use for short-term rental purposes. So understanding all your market knowledge, how much the market can hold in terms of what rates are going for in the area, how in demand Airbnbs or short-term rentals are in the area. All of those things are extremely important. So understanding your marketing knowledge is where you need to start before you put up any money into the short-term rental space. So in this lesson, we're going to just talk about market knowledge in terms of understanding what your requirements are, what your restrictions might be, and how to find that information. It's really important that you understand this part first, because this is your due diligence. So you definitely want to do your research on the market you want to enter. That means short-term rental laws vary from place to place, so you have to study and find out about the laws, the rental laws or short-term rental laws in your specific place that you want to actually set up a short-term rental. Most people don't realize that even if a state allows for short-term rental, like say for example Texas allows for short-term rental, the laws not only do they vary from place to place, but homeowners associations or HOAs can also impose certain laws such as deed restrictions that actually limit or completely prohibit you from establishing an Airbnb in that space, and so, or a short-term rental. So you have to understand what the laws are, not only in the state, but drilling all the way down to the actual neighborhood, and find out what kind of restrictions may already be in place that may not make that a good idea or even a good candidate for a short-term rental setup. So again, you want to do your research on the markets you want to enter. Short-term rental laws vary from place to place, so make sure you understand what those laws are for your area. Homeowners association laws matter. They matter. So understand that there may be deed restrictions in place, so you want to make sure you understand if those laws are in place and what they are. Ordinances and rules apply on a state level, on a city level, on a county level, etc. So also know them. Find out if a short-term rental license or permit is required in your area. This is extremely important. I can't emphasize this enough. You do not know how many people have put a lot of money into a unit or a property only to find out that certain licenses and permits were required. They may have been fined, or they may have been shut down completely because they didn't apply for the permits or the licensing. They didn't understand what the restrictions were in their area, and they just set up business and thought they could just start making money. You also need to get familiar with transient occupancy tax, or TOT, or transient lodging tax. It only applies in certain cities, so that's something else that you need to understand. This is the taxes that are actually typically applied to hotels and motels. More and more they're being applied to short-term rentals because that's what you're acting as. You're acting as a travel service and a short-term stay of a vacation place, just like a hotel or a motel would. So how do you find, or where do you start in your market knowledge or your market research? It's as simple as, most of the time you can just contact your local city clerk's office or whatever municipality that governs licensing, permits, and various property related ordinances in your city or your county. Most of the time it's the city clerk's office. You also can just do a simple Google short-term rental ordinances search, type in short-term rental ordinances or short-term rental regulations and put your city in, and then a whole list of things will pop up to give you good information about where you need to start with collecting the right information to know how hard or difficult it might be to get business up and running in that specific city or state. So for example, I'm here in Houston, Texas, and I just typed in short-term rental ordinances, Houston, Texas. As you can see, I get a lot of good information immediately about what I may need to consider for my area. Even Airbnb itself, as you can see right here, has a helpful article that tells you about your specific state. So if I click here, it's gonna just tell me some information about what's going on in my state. Again, they emphasize that they're not giving legal advice, but they do want to give you as good information as they can in order for you to be successful. So it says here, the hotel and motel ordinance found at section 28-201 to 28-210 of the Houston Code of Ordinances regulates short-term rentals in Houston. Important terms include bed and breakfast facility, the central business district, hotel, residence, and residential. You should review this ordinance to see if your listing is consistent with its requirements and to see what permits, if any, you might need to operate a listing. So again, they're telling you the specific ordinance in Houston to go and look at so that you can get a great idea of what your minimum requirements are for operation and to make sure that you're meeting those requirements. Talks about building and housing standards, how they enforce rules and regulations specifying minimum construction, design, and maintenance standards for building, including regulations on habitability, health, and safety. They also go into the hotel occupancy tax that I just mentioned. It says that Houston, Harris County, and the state of Texas may assess hotel occupancy taxes on hotels, motels, bed and breakfast, condominiums, apartments, and houses, and other short-term rentals. And then it clearly says a short-term rental is defined as a guest stay of less than 30 days. So anytime you have something set up where you're making money and the setup or stay is for less than 30 days, it falls up under these requirements. It falls up under this ordinance. It falls up under possibly the hotel occupancy tax regulation and all of the other rules. So you need to understand this stuff first and foremost. As you can see here, this article was last updated January 26, 2015. So this is old information. What you want to make sure you do is go and look at the actual ordinance and find out specifically what it's saying for today. Again, just showing you how to collect the right information. I have a property also in Pearland. Just recently, this article was published by a news agency. So if I click on this article, it actually talks about as of April 12, 2022, that Pearland, the city of Pearland, has put a new ordinance in place aimed to help regulate short-term rental. It goes on to talk about this quiet, beautiful, upscale neighborhood and how the neighbors were complaining about one of the neighbors using their property as a short-term rental because they traveled a lot. But it kind of became known as somewhat of a party house. And a lot of famous local artists were booking it on a regular basis, and the city of Pearland stepped in. What ended up happening is the city of Pearland voted in favor of a short-term rental ordinance, which will require rental property owners to have a permit and undergo safety inspections. So now you need to know that if you're operating within the city of Houston, but you have a lot of surrounding cities like Katy and Pearland and the Woodlands, etc. Each one of those places have their own ordinances and stipulations or restrictions on short-term rentals. You need to make sure that you know where your short-term rental is located and what ordinances apply to that specific area. Now, some other marketing questions you need to consider. You need to start creating your avatar. You need to know who is traveling to your city and why. Who is your ideal client or customer? What is bringing visitors to that market? Who is traveling here? When are they traveling? What are they expecting? And when are your money seasons? In other words, for the city of Houston, for example, we have the livestock show and rodeo. It's a huge event and it brings people from everywhere. People also love the Astros and a lot of our sporting franchises. You have to know who those people are. What are your peak seasons, like your money seasons? When are they coming? So you're looking for your ideal client or customer. what's bringing them to your market or your city, what type of person it is that's traveling, when are they traveling, times a year, what are they expecting? Are they expecting to be central to all of the main attractions so that nothing is more than 30 minutes in either direction from where they are lodging? All of that stuff matters when you're trying to develop the perfect money-making machine for your short-term rental or Airbnb. So let's stop here. We'll jump into the next lesson and go more in detail about the tools you can use to actually do more analysis and number crunching, to actually start figuring out how much you can make or what the profit potential is for an Airbnb or a short-term rental in specific areas within your city or wherever you are trying to establish a short-term rental business or Airbnb setup. I'll see you on the next lesson.